Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. My name is Thomas. This is Loic, and today for our first ever podcast of World Chase Talk, we have no other than Mr. Christian and Damien Devaux, the founder of the sport, but also the man who told me how to eat pancake the right way. So first of all, gentlemen, how are you?
Very good, thank
Yeah,
you. Very good.
very well, thank you.
Yeah, but I must have just come back to that pancake thing. We've got to specify. We taught you how to eat American pancakes, proper pancakes, not French pancakes. It was American
That's
pancakes.
true.
We taught you how
That's
to do properly.
That's
Just to
true.
specify.
No. French don't make pancakes. They make crepes.
No,
It's
we don't.
entirely. It's
Exactly.
a different food. It's a
Okay,
different
yeah.
food. It's not even.
Different thing.
I don't even
Different
why
thing.
people shouldn't even call them the same thing. They're totally and utterly different. Yeah.
Yeah.
The technique for crepe is totally different from pancake. The toppings, the
It is.
technique, everything.
Yeah.
If I have to tell you a secret, but don't tell anyone, the best crepe I've ever eaten was in London, actually.
Yeah. Don't. Yeah.
But
Loic's not going to like that. Loic's not going to like that at all.
What do you prefer? Do you prefer crepes or pancakes?
maybe pancakes. I don't know. I guess. I don't know. It's a difficult question.
So did we start a podcast about World Chase Tag or
About food.
crepes and cuisine and everything? Actually, that brings us to like one of the main topics we discussed at WCT6 USA, meaning we need to make WCT EMA Championship in France, so we can finally eat something good.
Do they have waffle
Just a little
houses?
diss at all my
Do they have
American
waffle
friends.
houses in Paris?
No, I don't think we have that kind of things. If Americans
Well-
come to Paris looking for Waffle House, they're going to be disappointed.
What about plastic cutlery? Do they have plastic cutlery?
That's very, very rare. I don't think they're allowed to give it anymore in France. You have to have like proper like
Okay.
cutlery. You're not allowed to give, I think by law,
Is that the
like
sophistication
throwaway,
police?
Dish.
Is that
It is.
you know,
It's
It is.
nothing to do
candles and
with. It's nothing to do with like the throw. It's just sophistication. Plastic cutlery. What the hell is this bullshit? You know, it's not sophisticated enough. We have to eat with metal cutlery.
Yeah,
you know.
I think we don't care about the environment. We just care about how it looks like. That's just like, oh, it's not fancy enough.
Yeah.
Maybe we could start talking about Chase Tag
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Obviously, we're gonna talk a lot about World Chase Tag and about you. We had to work a lot, like to prepare this podcast, especially because we've had a long-term relationship, talking together for quite some time, and we had to put ourselves back into the shoes of like, what if we didn't have access to you? We didn't have the chance to talk to you before. What kind of questions people may want to know? We also have like more tricky questions. So depending on how you go and if you're too cocky, we can ask very hard questions. The first one basically is one that you've already answered a lot. So we may not spend too much time on it, but it's always interesting for people that may be new to the sport. Where did Chase Tag start? What we're most interested in, and probably that wasn't talked about so much, are all the versions you brought before you came to the final chase-off format. Can you walk us through your experience of bringing the sport?
Yeah, maybe I'll start by saying how we started, and then I'll let Damon take over. So from the beginning, it just started like from just very organic in the sense of playing tag with like my son, who's now he's a bit big guy in Team Fat, who's Orlando. So for people that didn't know this, but when he was young, all he wanted to do was just play tag, and he didn't. I was more of a traditional sport guy. I wanted to, play football or cricket or something like that. I mean, he just wasn't interested in those sort of things. So it was just playing a lot of tag, and then I'd sort of forgotten how much fun tag was, yeah. And when he was young, it was kind of cool because like I could own him at tag, yeah. And so we just used to play a lot of tag, like with his friends. We would play and stuff, and then over time we started to introduce like obstacles, to make the game more interesting. And then over time, again, he reached some point where he thought he was getting better than me, and he said,
Okay.
okay, I think I'm better than you. Like, don't you think? Like, let's see who's better. And that was what really started everything when he asked this question, because in trying to prove who was better, that's what like kick-started. So I got two iPhones. I got one iPhone that counted down from like a minute, and then I would get a second iPhone where I would I have someone who would be watching, and then when I would tag, so you press start on both phones. So one is going down a minute, and then one is like a stopwatch going up. And then when the person that started on the tagged the other one, you press stop on the phone. And then you run around. And then when they tagged you back, you press start. So you needed an adjudicator to be pressing start and stop. Once the timer went off after a minute, you would then look at the phones, and then you'd see like who had the longest tag time, and or the shortest evasion time, effectively. And I thought, wow, that'd be amazing if professionals played that. Like imagine if you got elite athletes, but I was working in a hotel company. I just didn't have the time to do anything about it, so I just forgot about it until when we went through the financial crisis in 2008. We had a very difficult few years with the hotels, and then for me the crucial point was the hotel company I was working with got sold. They wanted me to relocate to Croatia. I didn't want to go, and then and so I was here deciding what to do. I could either sort of stay in hotels, I could go into I was going to go into management consultancy, or I could try doing this third option, which was this. And so I thought, now is a good time to do that third option because, it was just that sort of crossroads in my life, and so I took it. And the first thing I did was patented a timing system based on that idea that I had with the iPhone.
And that comes back to the first video that you shot at next to Chain Store when you rented the place, and you had the guys with the different shirts, and that was the accumulated.
Well, actually, that was later. That was later. Go on. Yeah, no, but before then, after Christian's idea, before that thing with the coloured shirts, that was one person. That was one-on-one. So it was only two people. Yeah. We started to have more and more people involved. So we started to have games with 3 or 4 people. And we realized we could have a certain round length. And if we had 5 people playing, we could just have 5 people with stopwatches that would time how long each person was on tag. And that was when we first did our first sort of test shoot with Storm and Stara. That was the video you would have seen with all the different coloured shirts. We'd have 4 or 5 people, and then each person would have a stopwatch. And the person who spent the least amount of time on tag would have won. But having that test shoot, we realized that it was very... there was a few things wrong with it. First of all, it was very easy to gang up on one particular player. It was also very difficult to get a focus of attention. Everyone is running around. It was difficult to tell who was on tag and things like that. Also, if there was a mistake with a decision about when the tag took place.
I just wanted to cut you off there just to say something, because that might be interesting for the viewers. Because when we did do that test shoot, and Damien said you can gang up on someone, all the Stora guys ganged up on Pip Anderson, right? And and Pip was killing
Poor
it.
Guy.
Right? He was Pip was doing really, really well, and all the Stora guys ended up ganging up on him, and it means that he ended up actually losing to Benj. So Benj is our first ever sort of winner, but I feel it kind of should have been Pip. Kind of. It's controversial to say that. Benj might not be happy, but I do feel sorry for Pip, and I just want to shout out to Pip because he rocked on that day. Yeah.
So the way we can see it as well is
robbed, I think
we owe to Store ganging up on one guy.
Yeah,
some of the changes of the sport that you've seen in real life to be that's why we're gonna have to change the game and make it what it is now.
Exactly.
That's great.
Okay.
It's basically the game of tag we've all played when we were kids. Put as a sport with different vision you had. I know you made some meetups in Hyde Park in London. You brought people to just play chase tag out in the open without even a quad or anything, just experiment and discover about the game. Then you did the first test shoot with the colored shirt. So I would tag you, I would shout purple or white because you have a white sweatshirt. Someone would time you're the chaser for 10 seconds before you tag someone else. And that would be 1 minute round or something like that. And then you move towards the chaser format. Was there anything in between that you tried, or was that the next step?
No, we tried, around that time, we tried so many different formats, ridiculous formats that weren't going to work. There was one that we had, we started to realize that teams, it was good. One of the things we thought about was if they gang up on people, maybe it sort of suits it to be done in a team format rather than an individual format. So we started to think of all kind of weird things that maybe you could have. One of the ideas that I remember was that you have and this is a bizarre one, but you'd have one evader and then a team of chasers. and the quad would have to be a lot bigger. But you would I don't know why we thought about this, and it's such a ridiculous thing to think. But this is one of the examples of the multitude we came up with. But the chasing team would have to stay in very close proximity, and the time would go slowly. And it was only when they broke apart did the timer properly start. So you just corral them. Then when you split off, that's when so we thought of all kind of stupid things, and they were ridiculous. They wouldn't have worked. Some of them weren't bad, but anyway. The one we decided was the best and the easiest was what we use today, is the one-on-one, winner stays on, basically. And that started off, it took a little while to get there. First of all, we just thought, okay, why don't we just do a format where it's just 20-second chases with one chaser and one evader. It was always winner stays on as the evader. And all the chases would just queue up, and you just take it in turns, and you just go round and round and round. It was a good way just to figure out who's going to be next on. And then one day we realized, wait a minute, you could divide that up into teams. So it sort of evolved over time, but we realized after a while, that's the best way of doing it.
Sorry, there's a crucial video called Chase Tag Chase Off Episode 1. And that was when there were 4 of us. It was me, Damien Lando, and my nephew Thibaut. And basically, if you look at our first ever video on YouTube, it was the same. My daughter was in that as well, and one of Lando's friends called Dom. But it was those 4 of us. Like my nephew Thibaut was always in the early involved in and he was actually in the Star Chase Off as well in Orlando's team. But that was the first time that we tried out this first one-on-one over 20 seconds. And so the video looks, it's a bit of a simple video, but for us, that's it's a very significant video in terms of our history.
So basically, like, to come back to what Damien was saying, you've experimented with a lot of different formats. Obviously, some of them were really fun formats to play, or probably even very good format to train on chase tag, to learn about like the strategies and everything, without going into too much like a team or anything. But the vision you have for world chase tag being like becoming a global sport and like going abroad with athletes coming in and everything, you also had to think of what can actually be produced, what people would want to watch. And basically, that's my question to you. Like, what do you think makes a sport attractive today? What it is that you're trying to make with World Chase Tag? What it is that you're trying to bring into the sport today?
Well, I've said this before, and I do sort of mean it. When myself and Damien started, we bought the scaffolding. When we did that first shoot with Stora, we absolutely made a pact that it doesn't matter if thing is fun. And incidentally, I really like multiplayer. And unfortunately, the term that we had used for the multiplayer was ultimate tag, we called it. It was a bit before the TV show. It was unfortunately a coincidence that it was like that. But I really like that tactic.
Coincidence.
Maybe I'm a bit older and slower and whatever, but I like the fact that you can sometimes find it strategically important to get yourself tagged if you're next to a person, because you could pass the tag on quickly. And so I just like this added level of layer of strategy. But we absolutely made a pact when we did those test shoots. We booked 2 days in May, one at the beginning of the month, and then we would do the test shoot, and then we booked the second day at the end of the month, because we wanted to see what we had observed from the beginning, and then we could refine like the quad and refine the rules and that sort of thing. So we booked the second day, we booked both dates, and we said to ourselves, if by the second date we weren't entertained in watching, we were going to sell the scaffolding and we were going to walk away. I was going to go and get another job, 100%. It was an absolute fact. And we were very fortunate because we landed upon, we called a few people. We called like Dan Edwards, we called Kai Willis, and we called Scott from Ampy Sound. And we ended up like going with Kai Willis, and Kai said, yeah, I can get you people. And he got us Storm, which we were very, like 4 guys, and he got Stora, and so we were very extremely fortunate. When we saw these people doing what they did, we thought, yeah, this is definitely like something that's worth pursuing. Now it was just a question of like, well, what format and how do we create that? But what we saw on that day, 100%, we thought, yeah, this could be something for sure.
And even when we got the one-on-one 20-second format sussed out, there was still a lot of things we realized, okay, it has to be 20-second chases. We thought about longer chases, and it was just people started to get tired, and it wasn't like an explosive sprint. So we knew it all has to be snappy. Even the way how like the short breaks between chases is all just to keep it fast and exciting and just short and explosive. And a very clear focus of attention. It's very obvious as soon as you turn on the chase, within the first 5 seconds, you know, okay, he's chasing him, and that's that.
So yeah, you try to build up onto the well-known sport of the game of chase tag, or tag actually, that everyone played on. Even animals played tag. You then added this kind of very fast-paced, only 20-second chase. So that's going to be very fast, only 25-second rest. So it's always going to be like a high tension building up. As well as the strategic side with building teams and like learning the arena and everything. Do you see in the coming future, maybe like 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, big evolutions to the game? I know we've discussed like behind the scenes or with different people working around chase tag, potential for leagues, potential for maybe multi-round games where you would do 16 chases, then you would have a break, then you would play another set of 16 chases and everything.
Yeah, like best of threes.
Best of three or stuff like that. Okay. Is it something? I'm asking the question while I know some of the answer, but is it something you're working on in the future?
We've got a couple ideas to change little factors about the game, but I think fundamentally it's going to stay the same. And we'll take it in time, and it's one of those things that I think it's because it's a new sport, we don't want to change things too much because it confuses the audience. So I think for the time being, there's 1 or 2 rules we might bring in, but sense. I think it works. There's a lot of other things we can do in the meantime to kind of help the sport grow. And the changing the rules or the quad or something like that isn't really a priority at the moment. You know, there's scope to change, but I don't think it's necessary now.
It comes back to what you were saying about chase tag is very easy to understand. You watch it and straight away you know who's chasing, who's evading, who's winning. Kind of like soccer in a way. You have some specific rules you need to learn, but you know if it's like 2-0, who's winning. You know when you score a goal, you know that someone just scored a goal. It's like very easy in that sense. It's not like a point system, but you have to wait for the judges or anything. So keeping that simplicity, I think, is a big draw for the athletes and for the gyms and everyone that want to get involved with World Chase Tag.
But while we're talking about changes, are you planning any changes on the quad, or do you think that the state of the quad right now is really balanced and good as it is?
Yeah, I think it's good. Like the last change, we made one change after WCT5, the World Championships, when we went to the US Championships, and we added that, you know,
bar the tilted cube. Yeah.
And I don't think there's any fundamental problems we need to change now. Yeah. And that was just to increase EQ in that area. You know, before a lot of people used to be around the area. Now it's sort of shifted a bit more towards the loading bay and the ridge. So we just thought we'd try and increase the EQ there. Has it worked? I don't think we've got enough data on it yet. But I don't think there's any rush to change the quad anytime soon. Okay. You know, we'll see if anyone exposes any problems. But I think for now it's good. You know?
Yeah, one of the things I find fascinating about chase tag is it's like a constant battle between like 2 athletes in the quad, 2 teams outside the quad, but in some way every athlete's against the quad itself. And it's like World Chase Tag also working into keeping the EQ balanced, the evasion quality. You wouldn't want to watch a sport where 100% of the chases end with a tag or an evasion. And that's really important to see. Like, there will always be monitoring of what's happening on the quad and decisions made according to, okay, we need maybe to raise the EQ somehow in a place or another, just to make sure that the game stays challenging for everyone. But it won't be changes that huge every time or anytime. You're not going to replace loading bay straight away or ridge straight away. Maybe that will just be like adjusting the height of a bar or adding 1 bar or something, which will change the game only a little, bringing new strategies and ways to play, which is a huge draw as well. Like if you're a good team and you've been training for years on the quad, you don't want all of a sudden the quad completely changed and you have to learn everything, new tactics, new automatisms and everything.
It's amazing. I find that how consistent actually the quad is, because if you look at the stats, event after event after event, the average chase time ends up being about 13.5 seconds. That's very consistent. Also, the amount of evasions we have is also incredibly consistent between events. Doesn't matter if it's in Europe or America. The EQ of the whole quad, and the evasion ratio of the quad is actually remarkably consistent. And so is the chase time. That's so consistent after each event. I think it's like literally always about 13.5 seconds is the average chase time, which is bizarre considering there's so many different, types of athletes involved. Sometimes it's only American athletes, sometimes only European athletes.
The biggest single change that we had when we did the Star Chase-Off, the first one, we didn't have a border. And we had targeted about 20 to 30% evasion ratio. So we wanted, 20 to 30% of chases then in evasion. And when we did the test shoot, we had a combination of some really good athletes and some like less good athletes. Yeah, let's put it that way. And we got the evasion ratio we wanted. So we thought, yeah, it's perfect. When we did the actual event, the Star Chase-Off, all the athletes were really, really good. And they were all pumped up because they all wanted to win,
Makes sense.
And people were getting caught like in 5 seconds set. And I had in my mind what it would look like. That first event was almost like a fraction above my worst case scenario. And I remember being in the corner, just thinking, this is a disaster. It's a total and utter disaster, And then eventually a couple of evasions came and it sort of worked out. But in my mind, I was really, really pissed off. And so when we did the second event, the crucial thing, because we didn't put the border on, because it took us, we took 2 trucks up when we did that first event. And we did the border, it literally adds, like in terms of weight, it adds almost like a third of the weight, right? Just the border. Yeah. But we thought, okay, look, we have to do the border. We were debating like how wide do we make the border? And we settled on the height that we have based on like the size of the sheet that we could get of wood, And we put the border on. We did this test event, not test, it was like a qualifier for the WCT2. We did it at Mikey Newman's place he did this event in Swansea, and the border just worked so well. And so to me, that was, I don't think the quad will ever undergo a single biggest change as the border. And so that was one crucial thing. And then the next time I was that pissed off as well was, I remember, because I was pissed off at when we did WCT USA, the second one in 21, because my wife I've been looking forward to this event, COVID, no one was doing anything. My wife got COVID and I couldn't go. I wasn't even sick. My wife tested positive. Now I couldn't go to America. So I had to sit here and watch this thing, and we were watching it live. And I remember watching, and I remember seeing a few people practice, and they were going behind the mountain, right? And before Apex came on, I saw a few people go behind the mountain, and I was like, why are they going behind the mountain? That never works, because people had tried it before. It never works. And what I think had happened was, I think word had got out of Apex people saying, yeah, we figured out how to go behind the mountain. So other people were trying it, thinking it works. But you need to know the precise foot placement and everything like that. When Apex came on, they made it work, right? And I was absolutely fuming, right? I was pissed off because the buzzer wouldn't work. I was pissed off because I wasn't there. And I was pissed off because people were going behind the mountain. And I was just like, fuck, right? And I don't mean, I'm not pissed off with Apex. Let me just be completely clear on that, but I was fucking pissed off on that day. And I think that change with the border, with the tack ramp on the mountain slope, and then the Apex bars, I think that was probably maybe the second biggest change we made. Oh no, probably the ridge, when we put the ridge, because there was a whole different obstacle there altogether. The ridge and the sled.
Lazy Boy as well. If you look
Lazy
at
Boy
WC2, it was on your
lot.
table or something, and then you added like the bars and gates and everything. To some extent, like Apex and the fuck Apex bars, that's coming for a reason. But obviously, like Apex is the prime example of playing smart, like finding a vulnerability into the quad and just using it to their best advantage.
Do you think that another situation like this one could happen? Like maybe there's something in the quad
I think at WC6 US we've seen Olaf try to go behind the tack ramp.
I mean,
it didn't work.
He didn't work.
But he also did like some crazy moves on the sisters, like tic tac onto the second
really
sister
nice.
and going down again and
that was
everything.
really nice.
So I think we'll get into more kind of technical and timing as opposed to just like going outside the map in a way. But I'm still waiting to see some people were discussing on the Discord. Is it allowed? And it is allowed to just jump out of the quad before the buzzer and then land after the buzzer outside of the quad. And I'm waiting to see that happen. I can't wait for someone to do it. It is allowed. You're allowed to be anywhere inside the quad, but if you're jumping out and you land after the buzzer, technically you were never outside the quad until it buzzes. But usually in gyms, like especially in York Hall, you don't have the space to jump out really, like with the camera guys and refs and everything. But to some extent, if you're on top of the mountain and you start jumping out from the quad, that would be like a crazy move to try.
There's one chaser with Nicodemus. I can't remember who. He was right in the corner by the tilted cube. And he got tagged, like literally, he was sitting there and the guy was just inching his way forward and he got tagged like literally on 19 and a half seconds. If he would have just stood on the border and jumped off, that probably would have been invasion. That's the only time that I think I can really think that would have been the case. You know?
But as an athlete, you're taking a huge risk because you're not sure that it's 19.5 seconds before you jump. So you have to, like, maybe run with a timer on your watch and be like, all right, now I can jump.
Or look at the scoreboard if there's timers there on the scoreboard.
My coffee machine at home, it when you press the button, like you press it twice and then the coffee comes out, right? Like if it's you turn it on, so from scratch, if you press it twice, it's exactly 20 seconds before the coffee comes out, right? So I always count in my head, and I have a thing with my daughter, like I go like that, boom, just as it, and I'll say, Luca, and so she'll be from the other end, she goes, and then the coffee goes, and even though I try and count it in my mind every time I have a coffee, I never get it. We're
gonna need a brand of that to put it. I'm sure athletes will want to buy the same one.
20-second coffee.
Yeah. 20 seconds coffee to train your 20-second reflex. And
Keep
when you talked about Swansea, I think that was the only event where Harun got evaded. Am I right? That wasn't an official one, so it doesn't count as his proper statistics. But
there's a couple things
I believe
to say
it was the
about
only
that.
time he got evaded, probably by a kid or something. Am I right?
There's a couple things to say about that though. Like I think they were, as far as I remember, they were really destroying the other team, and they let him and I think if you look back at the video, he kind of let him kind of get away. So I think that. I didn't realize that. Like some comments started to come up on social media, who were saying like, "Oh, he got tagged here, he got evaded here and here," and we were like, "No, that's not true." And then someone actually gave a link, and I watched it, and I was like, "Oh shit, yeah, he did." But looking back on it, we don't count that because he was letting him win. I think they were so clear ahead. They just thought let him win.
Yeah, it was not an official event as well. Like he's still unevaded in his professional career.
In Lyon, when he was playing against Paco 59,
but again, that was not a professional event, and he tagged at 19.9, so that was very close.
Really close, really close.
But he's still unevaded. He's one of the few unevaded with Sligo and some other athletes. If we move forward to like we have a few other questions. So obviously we talked a lot about the history and like how it came about and some things that made you upset and everything. We talked a little bit about the few changes you would want to see in chase tag, like the rules and everything. As you said, it's not likely you would change the whole ruling system. That would make no sense anyways, or to bring like huge changes to the quad. But World Chase Tag as a whole has like big projects with like leagues. I know Marcus is working also on the trading cards. Maybe at some point a video game. Like we were discussing the other day with someone being like, "Oh, I would love to play a video game of World Chase Tag or something." Where do you see like the sport in like 1, 3, 5 years?
Like obviously this is like quite a question people always talk, and every year that someone asks this question, I think I have a slightly different like vision of it, but and so let's say going right forward, if you'd said to me like, say for example something like Olympics, if you'd said to me, is this going to be, I would say, like, I don't really want to be in the Olympics, and I don't think it is going to be in the Olympics, now that I know what I know about the Olympics, being that their focus on urban sports, their focus on a younger demographic, their inclusion of women, and their pillar being to have sports that have a much lower financial footprint, so to speak. It would be very difficult to at some point in the future, if chase tag continues on the trajectory and that we're growing in popularity around the world, it'd be very difficult to ignore something like that, because it satisfies all of the pillars that are being supported by the IOC. And on top of that, there are very few sports that are naturally as global as chase tag is. Yeah,
That's true.
because some sports don't have, maybe, say for example, if you take surfing, for example, not everywhere has waves. Yeah, if you take skateboarding, not everywhere has the ability. If you're in a country like India, there are very few places to skateboard in India, right? But with chase tag, everybody, there's not a country in the world or a person, an able-bodied person in the world that hasn't played it at some point. So if you're talking about a truly global sport, there aren't many that are like that. And from my point of view, there are some sports that are fun to watch, but boring to play. And the other way around, good to watch, boring to play. I personally, my view is that chase tag is both. Yeah. And so with that in mind, I don't think there is a limit. And if you take other sports, say, for example, what's the biggest success sport of recent times? And I think it's probably like MMA and what that's done. But there are elements of MMA that are perceived as slightly negative. It's violent, it's kind of brutal, whereas chase tag they're just positive elements about chase tag. So
that's true.
I think there is no limit.
So we're getting close to the end of that podcast. We still have a few minutes, but we still have three main questions I think we want to ask you. So I'm going to have to ask you something I usually don't do because I love talking with you guys. But we're going to have to come back to shorter answer. The first one is probably the trickiest one and the weirdest one to answer. I'll go for it and I'll give you the easy questions for later.
Okay, cool.
What is the most difficult decision you've had to make as you were building the sports?
We've always had this this thing. We want to see the best people chase. That's always been our guiding principle. We realize after we get pulled in all kind of different directions, we want to see the best people chase. And that's really helped us along the way in just focusing our attention. What's going to allow us to see the best people chase? So that's made things very, very simple. But I think in a way, and I don't know if Christian agrees with me, and it wasn't really that much of a difficult decision, to be totally honest, but near the beginning, when we first started to get success on social media, we started to get a lot of things from TV companies saying, "Oh yeah, we can make this into the next Ninja Warrior" and all this kind of stuff. And it's tempting, but we always just kind of said, "No. We don't want to do what we want to do, the sports side of it, not the TV program side of it." I remember we actually went to, I think it was a lawyer or a production company or something like that, and we were telling them we don't really want to do that kind of stuff. And he was like, he thought we were crazy. He was saying to us, "Are you sure? Let me get this right. You're being offered to make a TV program, but you're turning it down." And we were like, "Yeah, we want to concentrate on the sports side of things." And he just thought we were crazy. And I think I say it's a difficult decision because it was tempting, but I don't think we ever really seriously gave it any consideration whatsoever. But in a way, that was the hardest decision we had. I think having that thing that we want to see the best people chase, and we want to see it as a sport and not a TV program, made things very, very easy. So I don't think we've had any really difficult decisions. I don't know if Christian disagrees, but in a way, the hardest decision was just to actually do it in the first place. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I do disagree a little bit because I would say, to me, that wasn't a difficult decision. That was easy. We never wanted to do it. And it was simple. But I agree 100% with what Damien said. Are you not going to regret this later? A difficult decision is this thing between should we be on TV and should we remain on digital? This is a really, really, really important question. And it's tied in with our partners, Tupelo Honey and Grey Television. Yeah. this was a really tough one because do we stay digital and keep our costs down, or do we do things like for television that can appeal to a bigger market, but they're more expensive? If they're more expensive, it's more difficult to do regular events. There's more, like, we have to burn through our equity to raise finance to be able to do that. And it's one of those questions that we'll never know, like, because we'll never know what could have been had we stayed purely digital. The only thing we can say is that, like, actually, when we work with Tupelo, we sit down and we strategize on what we should be doing, and whether, like, being on ESPN. And so far, it has being on ESPN, and like we'll soon be on L'Equipe, we'll be, the BBC, plus all of the other channels that we are around the world. This has given us a air of legitimacy that perhaps we wouldn't have got if we had stayed on the digital. And I think that's really important for people to accept that we are, like, this is a proper sport now. And so people buy into it more. So, I think it's probably the right direction, but we'll never know. But that was a very, very difficult crossroads that we faced.
I think you did keep the passion about the sport alive, and therefore, so therefore I don't think that the TV was a bad decision, in my opinion.
I think most athletes would agree, and everyone seems to be excited about what's to come. So,
plus some people are still releasing content digitally and trying different things. So I feel like you have a bit of both worlds, which is good.
And in the end, people will complain about everything, like American food, chase tag.
These French people. Anyway, we have, it's almost like a little ritual we have on the podcast, is that we like to ask everyone, you guys are going to work together, if you had to build like the best team possible of chase tag, who would you take?
You only have 6 choices. You can pick anyone you want. You can even pick people who are retired, people who didn't even start chase tag yet, but you want to join. You're allowed to pick anyone. If you want to make it harder, I can give you my team, and you're not allowed to pick anyone from that team.
No, don't like
or
that
you can go straight with your team if you don't want any help.
I would say, judging by the fact that this has just been recorded after the US Championship, I would say definitely Jason Bergeron and Orlando. Orlando. So that's the first 2. Christian, are you going to disagree with that? Or do you agree?
It'd be hard to disagree with that.
Yeah, okay, that's 2.
It's lucky I didn't give my team because I had both of them inside.
Okay.
I heard that Christian was actually better than Orlando at tag, but that's...
He was better in 2008.
Do we go for Haroon as well?
I got Haroon in my team, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, you picked 3 out of my 6 already. Probably going to pick a 4th one, I think, especially Christian, because I have an athlete that he said he would always draw in his team if he had to make one.
Okay, Christian, you do the next.
Yeah, I mean, you could do a whole podcast on this, yeah?
Yeah.
Because there's people that maybe haven't lit the chase tag on fire yet in terms of their dominance, but you always know that it's a question of time before they do, yeah? Like Jared. If Jared continues training, at some point, like, he's going to dominate.
Yeah.
Like, I always see, like, Santos is so explosive, and then there's people like Michael Sliger, who you always want to rely on. He's like, and like Naeem, who has that, like, sort of aggression, and
right.
You kind of want to balance your team out. You don't want, like, everybody in it, and also, do you just want evaders, or do you want, like, chasers as well? So if he committed to it, if he committed to training, like, Haroon is always then tactically, Haroon is like one of the best, like, people around, with his long arms and everything like that.
The harpoon.
Like, Khalil is like, his reach is pretty strong. But in terms of raw speed on the quad, this is raw speed on the quad, yeah? Luke Stones would have trained as well. Like, you always want him to have this reliable chaser who, you could always put out. So
you're
like,
just
I
listing
don't
all
know,
the best
sometimes-
athletes.
Yeah,
I'm
you're just
gonna give you
listing
my
those
team
people. You're
to
not
see
picking
what you would
anyone.
say to it.
What about can you what about what about coach? What about coach?
Yeah, I was going to say Amos.
We didn't say,
That was
you
going
can
to say
pick a
Amos.
coach. It's not part of the 6. Probably.
No,
you
but
can-
I would still pick
everyone's
Amos,
gonna pick
'cause he's a
Amos
good
for-
brain
at,
to
at
have.
this point.
That's
Everyone's
the
gonna pick
easy
Amos.
answer.
Yeah. I would
Yeah.
pick Amos.
So my team basically was Jason Orlando. I've said it. I had Naeem there. I added Harun. I had Rob Schill. And then the last one I picked Emil from Kimeo because he's been training a lot. Most people only have seen WST5 and he's not showing that's his best side yet. But I believe he could take a strong team by himself by now. So I'm giving him a shot at that in that dream team. So you got Jason, Orlando, Harun, and then you said Jarrod, Santos, Michael Sliger, Naeem, Khalil, Luke Stones, etc.
Yeah, we got a big team.
My dream team would be. It would be hard. Basically, I'd start with Apex and just sub one or two of the people out of Apex. Yeah,
I mean, if you got a team that
Like,
never lost, that would be like a good way to make it.
but I wouldn't put Emil in, right? But what I would do, if you were allowed a coach, I would have probably as the coach. But if you were allowed assistant coach, like a fitness, then 100% I'd choose Emil. Like he'd be my, like, you know, when they need discipline or you need that sort of, you know, people are just messing about, they're not showing up on time.
Yeah, that's the army side in him. That's why.
Yeah, Emil he'd be definitely in the coaching staff, 100%.
So who do you validate in your team? Jason, Orlando, Harun, and then the next 3.
But before I'd pick that, I would assess their motivation for that tournament. Yeah, this is really important.
Are you just
So
trying to
someone
evade
like-
that question with just
Yeah,
some
he's
kind of
evading the
bullshit
question.
way around? Like,
Evasion!
I would make a test because I don't want to pick someone.
I'd put Michael Sliger in there. I'd put Michael
Amos
Sliger.
Sliger. All right.
To tell you the truth, I love to watch Seth Wang chase. I love to watch him chase. So I would just put him in there just purely from an entertainment point of view. How he dives through the bars and stuff like that. It's just impressive. My 6th player would be like a wild card. I'd either pick like Seth Wang or Andy Tomin or something like that.
Yeah,
Someone who's
Seth,
just going to chuck it.
Andy.
So, yeah.
That was exactly what I was gonna say. I was like, once you have them in your team, if they get on the starter plate, you're scared in front. You're like, what the fuck am I gonna do now?
Yeah.
They sent
Exactly,
Seth,
yeah.
then they sent Andy in very different like ways of playing
Yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
But they're all scary.
But if you could have a situation where if you could only pick 2 athletes and just watch them chase again and again and again and again, I could watch Seth Wang chasing Jason Bergeron. I could watch that like. I could watch 2 hours of that. Just chase after chase.
Yeah, they have videos on
But
their
that
Instagram. I think
combination-
we'll just post it as well here on top of the podcast. They have videos. It's just
not-
insane to watch.
Jason chasing Seth. Seth chasing Jason. It has to be that way around.
Yeah. All right. So last question is also a bit weird. Or not, depending on what you can answer. What advice would you give to someone who's considering starting their own company, their own organization, their own
maybe
sports?
we could say project to keep it like
what kind
wide.
of advice would you give them to succeed in that? You're gonna say, and I'm gonna just take that off from the list. We may not have succeeded yet. Blah 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 blah. But to some extent, like World Chase Tag is becoming global. People are playing everywhere in the world. It's coming to TV in Czech Republic, France, England, USA, and everything. For a lot of people, that is like already quite a huge success. What piece of advice would you give to someone who's starting a project, any project?
I've got a definite answer for this. Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go, James?
Well, I'll go first because I know what yours is. And so mine, I don't have kids and stuff like that. I don't have a family and all this kind of stuff. So I can take more risks. And I would just say, and I've been involved in a lot of projects.
you
that
have a
haven't worked
family.
out. Huh? I don't have family that rely on me. Do you know what I mean? No one relies on me. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
I can't even rely on myself, to be totally honest. I have no heirs to the throne. I have no offspring that depend on me. And so I would say, take risks, just do it, and just you learn from each one, and just get, like there's a saying, fail better. Just do it, and just don't fail as much next time, and just get better each time, and don't fail as bad as you did last time. And and hopefully you'll get there one day. And just go for it. Just keep doing it, and just learning and growing and stuff like that. I know Christian's is a bit different. and it's because of our risk tolerance. I think I'm able to risk because I don't have as much, no one depending on me. That's my answer. Go for it.
We're gonna make T-shirts with this, like fail better, and then we're gonna make the other one with the bits of knowledge that Christian is gonna give us.
Okay, cool.
So my thing is that is to ask yourself this question, because like I've been like this before, and I say this to other people as well. If you can stop doing what you want to do, then stop. Unless you can't, because you really want to do something. It's so difficult, and the world is so competitive now, right? That there is no point trying to compete against someone who's doing something because they can't stop. There's something in them. Like right now, me and Damien have committed everything. We can't stop. We don't have a choice. And that's sometimes when you have choice, this is like not, when you have no choice, you have to go. Yeah. And that's an important thing, because there's some people in this day and age, you're competing against those people who will give everything to it. And unless you're prepared to do that, there's no point. Yeah. And I've seen this before, like even with people like I look at the way like Orlando trains, not chase tag, but the way he applies himself to parkour. He does that because that's what he does. He doesn't question and get distracted by some of the other things that other people do. He's parkour. That's what I do, right? And so if you want to be good at parkour, you've got to do what he does. Otherwise, you're not going to be as good. Lando's not, look at me. He has that DNA. Look at my wife. Yeah, that's the DNA he has. There's nothing special about that. The reason why he's good at parkour is because he trains and trains and trains. That's it. That's what his focus is, right? And it's like that. If you want to do something like that has a big impact, you have to give everything to it.
I think that's a very solid piece of advice.
Yeah.
Do find what moves you and go for it.
Just
and
go.
never stop. Like basically, I think that there is a book about that, like called Relentless or something, by Tim Grover. I'm just sharing bits. Go buy it on Amazon. I'm gonna send you my affiliate link.
And we're going to start selling like coffee machines.
Yeah. We are like the coffee machine. You need to give us the name of it. We'll put it in the description. I'm sure some athletes, especially Americans, they're very like professional in their way of training, will want to buy it just to train their 20-second reflex.
Like one chase, one coffee, one chase,
I mean,
one
if
coffee.
every day you have that thing of like every morning I have it, then I go train, then I'm used to have it in my daily life. I know what 20 seconds is.
Apparently, Reaper from Empire, he counts. Yeah, he counts the 20 seconds.
Oh, okay.
In Atlanta, there was one chase where he kind of just stopped, and then the guy tagged him on 19.9, and he was thinking like the buzz is going to come any minute now. I don't know how much truth there is in that. Yeah, but apparently he counts. Yeah.
Thank you for joining us to that first podcast. That's not the first one we recorded, but that will probably be the first one out. Thank you very much for your time, and also, like I've said it already multiple times in the past, but thank you for everything you do for World Chase Tag, and
likewise,
basically for the sport you built. But it brings so much to everyone. We had a big conversation already with Frank and Mark Bowles and Frank Mejia.
They're obsessed
and
about
they're
chase
obsessed
tag.
with it. Mark's wife forbid him to bring chase tag into the house and everything. I mean, she's very supportive, he told us. But
actually, I think we should thank you for ruining relationships, I guess.
Yeah. Like he's gonna slap me when I come to Panam. But yeah, no, yeah, people are obsessed with it, and I'm obsessed with it. I'm the first one obsessed with it. So thank you for that. That's very big things in many people's life now, I think so.
My wife gets like angry if we have dinner, like, and then Damien is around, and then we like that. So yeah, I understand, and I apologize to all of those people that I've ruined. But there are a couple of things that in my mind, I remember seeing Mark training in his garage, and he'd created this. He'd sized out the mountain gap, and he was doing speedbolts through this thing. And it just incessant, like boom, 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 one after another. And I really, that image of him doing that really sticks in my mind, as well as the the image of the heavily accessorized Frank Mejia will always be imprinted in my mind as well. Was he heavily
And his
accessorized
famous
during
questions.
the podcast?
He just had his glasses. He was like just GNF shirt, glasses, classic style.
Children.
Frank being Frank.
Yeah, the legend, the myth. So anyway, maybe we should say bye now.
Okay, bye. Thank you very much.
Okay,
I'll have you on the
cheers.
phone probably in the next few days, anyways. So
Yeah, speak to you soon.
see you.
Okay,
Bye,
take
guys.
care. Thanks
See you
for
soon.
Thank
having
you
us.
very much.
Bye.